Hello, hello. You are listening to the Goggler podcast. Ian, Bahir, and Uma with you. We've got another week of movies to talk about. This week, we're going to be talking about the final installment in the Fear Street trilogy, 1666. We're going to be talking about the indie darling First Cow, which we can finally legally officially watch on Mubi. And we're also going to be doing a Loki spoiler special after all of this. So if you haven't seen the final episode of Loki, you can stop watching then. How are you guys doing?
I'm
Yeah.
a I'm a petty, unfulfilled filmmaker, apparently.
So,
Ew.
in case you missed it, we did a podcast in which I interviewed the director of the much maligned Zombietopia. For people who are wondering, actually, people were asking this question a lot on Instagram as to how we came about the interview, and it was because we reached out. So I
We
had
asked
reached
them.
out through,
Sometimes
yeah.
it's that easy. It's like we have a list of people that we know, and it's like, hey, you wanna? And they're like, oh, yeah.
So we went through the agency that handles Disney Plus Hotstar, and we said, "Hey, we want to speak to Mingjin about his movie Zombietopia," and we usually do that, right? We speak to everyone we can get our hands on, whether or not we like their product, and more often than not. It ends up being a conversation about inspirations and processes. Whether or not we enjoy a movie, we still want to find out what a director is thinking about.
Yeah,
Invariably is very, it's jovial, right?
yeah.
It's fine. It's camaraderie.
Also because more often than not there is this unspoken thing between directors and critics, right? And you see it a lot. If you've ever listened to the Commode and Mayo podcast,
Mm.
even if Simon Mayo doesn't like a movie, and when he doesn't like a movie he makes his opinion known,
Hmm.
even when he's speaking to actors or directors, it's always a very two things happen. It's very civil conversation, and you can tell when he doesn't like a movie because he gets really deep into the process of making the movie as opposed to talking about what it's about.
Yeah.
And
But
the other thing
he is radio royalty though at this point. He like the last
of
of the
course,
radio royalty stars. So he's like he has the cachet to pull that up. Like when he's talking to somebody and when he calls David Tennant David, it's because they hang out in the same parties.
exactly. But also the second thing is most filmmakers and actors have a sense of awareness whether their movie is good or bad, and they never ask, "Did you like my film?"
Hmm.
It is a kind of unspoken rule,
I mean,
right?
even
Uh,
John Boyega waited like a couple of years before complaining about how bad it was on Star Wars, right?
Pretty much, I think no,
Mm.
about 8 months.
Hmm.
After Rise of Skywalker came out. But yeah, so the Mingjin interview started off civil enough, and then it
Well,
kind of
well,
went
hang
off
on,
the rails.
hang on. You say that, but within the first 5 minutes, he was like, "Okay, hang on, let me pull up your review." So when you say it starts off, I mean,
Well,
not
I say
very long
starts off
after.
because I managed to divert the conversation to actually get him to talk about what he was thinking.
I
But
guess.
that didn't last long. That lasted about 15 minutes before he went line by line through Ian's review.
That's been
He
fun.
was
I think that's the
reading
first time
it
that's happened.
he was reading it as I was talking. At one point he actually just goes, "Hold up, I'm still reading this now." Okay. Yeah, so it kind of went off the rails, but I kept quiet and let him have his piece because he clearly had a lot to say, and he was clearly feeling a little hurt by all of the reviews that were coming out on the internet and Facebook.
Hmm.
um, and yeah, and I don't think he's had other platforms yet in
Mm.
which to kind of vent his frustrations.
Yeah, and
Um,
which are many, and which have only about 10% of what he actually talked about were anything to do with us. the
oh no,
rest
no, for
the
sure.
rest were like again. I kind of you did first of all, great start to the interview. You didn't bury the lead. You went straight to the dinosaur. I like that a lot. But you didn't pull him up on the fact that while he was complaining about Malaysian media being very critical and like always, I mean, this is something that they talk about in Ireland as well. They big you up until you get to a certain point, the tall daisy syndrome, right? Tall poppy. And
Yeah.
there's an element of that. I mean, I don't know from a filmmaking perspective whether here in Malaysia it's a case that they don't raise you up at first. Like there's a certain point in Ireland where it's like, oh, he's too big for his own boots. But
Right.
you kind of forgot to point out that I'm not Malaysian.
Oh, I figured he could tell from your name. You know what? I didn't point that out because I didn't want the conversation to descend into, oh, the foreigners talking about Malaysian films, and because that would have just opened up a whole different can of worms,
Yeah,
right?
and then someone calls me colonizer, and then that opens up a whole other kind of historical worms. Like, oh, really?
Hang on, wait a minute. Yeah, no, it's
Ian's there going, I was decolonized, damn it.
We were colonized first.
So yeah, so that was you can check out the podcast. It is available on goggler.my and wherever you get podcasts. It's interesting because I will give credit to Mingjin. Very few directors come on and do that, and then
mm,
will, like, it's happened before, and after that I end up getting an email or a phone call going, oh,
Please
can
don't
you
run
not
that.
run that, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Mingjin was like,
well,
no, put it out there, it's fine.
let's be fair. If there was a Disney Plus PR person on the other end of that line who heard that conversation, they would have probably given you that call.
They
and
would have
said,
hit
"Don't run it."
Actually,
hit the
to be
eject button.
fair, to be fair, I gave a heads up to the Disney Plus person after the interview because I just thought it was fair because they organized it, and they said, you know what, you asked
If
him,
he's
you
fine
cleared
with
it
it,
with
yeah.
him, just run it as is. So, I was like, okay, it's out there in the world, and people
And
are
look,
reacting
okay,
to it.
let's. I mean, we've been sort of getting a lot of responses on social media about the interview, and yeah, it's not looking good for Mingjin. But you know what? We made no, but to be fair, we made a comment on a film, and we've sort of repeated it over and over again that we almost never tell anybody to not watch a film. This is our opinion.
You used to though. I caught you a couple of times doing it in the before
Well,
times.
there was a couple of no, but I will say there are a handful of movies where I
There's
say
Badangla.
Yeah.
Christ.
Yeah, but even then, I think I
is-
could remember
yeah.
sitting in a radio show going like, I don't think you should say
Sure.
that. You should always never say don't watch it. You can watch it if you value your time that little. You can watch these things, but
No, but
don't say not to watch it.
But here's the thing. I think if you're going to the cinema and spending money,
Yeah,
then But if you've already got Disney Plus and if you've already got Disney Plus Hotstar My and you heard the interview and check it out. I mean,
Yeah.
you may enjoy it. You may be one of those American distributors that Mingjin mentioned that enjoyed it. So please go ahead.
But you know what? We were talking about this after the interview got published and after you guys listened to it. And there is a disconnect, right, between, I guess, the understanding of what the role of a critic is. And
Yeah.
because I think Minjin's arguments are echoed. He's not the only filmmaker to have said this to us in the past, in the whole, why can't you just support things? The industry needs support, that kind of thing. He brings up the fact that, because it's available on Disney Plus Hotstar, people can watch it. But a critic can have a disastrous impact on a movie if it's in cinemas and it affects box office.
but do
For
they anymore?
me-
I think that time has passed. I mean, I don't know. There's been plenty of critic-proof movies that were like terrible that had great opening weekends. Word of mouth kills things quicker, I think, more now
No,
with the
but
internet.
I think
I think the big movies are still critic proof. I think a Fast 9 is still critic proof. I think a smaller movie, an indie movie.
I think even more so with a local production because of the sort of bad track record that we've had, and I think that's a little unfair because I mean I don't really consider myself a critic. I consider myself a reviewer. In the sense that, in the same way that even if I didn't have an avenue to write a review or do a weekly podcast,
You'd still be
somebody
boring
walked
people
up-
down the mammoth with your opinion on
Pretty
1980s
much,
film.
yeah. Because somebody walked up to me and said, "Hey, you saw KL Zombie, or Zombietopia, or J2 Retribusi. What did you think?" I would still give them the same opinion, And I think that's the point. I think what we do is we are that guy who watches every movie out there, and if you ask them, they'll give you an opinion. And I think our opinions. I'd like to think our opinions are fair. We don't have any axes to grind. We're not failed filmmakers. I was, but I've kind of left that pool because
How many movies have you failed to make again?
I've actually made for.
That's what I mean.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I guess that's and look, they weren't great, and I accept that. But at the end of the day, the point is we're not here to tell a filmmaker how to make a movie. We're here to tell you our opinion, and if 7 people or 7,000 or 7 million value said opinion, then okay, cool.
But also, I think there is a responsibility when you have a platform to the movie going public, right? Because for a lot of
Yeah,
people,
I know, but I think that's the
that
thing, right?
that
Our
no,
our, our
but I did, which
responsibility
is this.
to the
this
public, not to
yeah,
the film.
exactly.
Yeah.
This is where I disagree with Mingjin. I think the responsibility lies somewhere in between, especially when it's a developing industry like Malaysia. But
Mm,
it's primarily also to the public because for a lot of people, this is all the money they have, and that cinema trip once a month, maybe with the whole family, is their one big source of entertainment. And we're not going to lie to them and say something is fantastic or that we love something because it's Malaysian, because
yeah,
that guy is going to be like, I just spent 200 ringgit buying popcorn, drinks, tickets, and this is garbage when I could have gone and had some proper entertainment, right? I mean that
yeah.
responsibility is there, and you would be betraying the public's trust if you were to just go, oh, I'm supporting it because it's. I just hate that notion of it keeps coming up. Why can't you support something because it's Malaysian,
Yeah,
right?
But here's the
because
thing, right?
because
Like,
plenty of things they've gotten the support from FINAS, they've gotten approval, they've gotten the
Correct.
money. That's the support they get. You're not entitled to any. What we do here, whether we're reviewers or critics, the way I always look at it is that I can remember walking home from primary school telling my friend who couldn't make my birthday party about the entire plot of Memphis Belle. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Mm.
I
And
love
it's
that
like
movie.
we watch movies, we watch them and we tell people whether we like them or whether we didn't. But the difference is we try to look into the reasons why we didn't like them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if that goes into, having watched so many films over time, and having, learned about film and, things like 3-act structures or the way things work together and things play against those things, knowing some of that stuff, I hopefully gives us a little bit of insight into why this surprise worked at the end of the movie, or
Yeah.
why this other thing
Yeah.
worked, or why it
Yeah.
was surprising when that lady got killed at the beginning of Psycho. But that's what we're doing. If we're nitpicking or we're being negative, I've had people say like, oh, I don't miss picking at the worst parts of a movie. If we're doing that, it's because the movie's already lost us. We're not being entertained. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We're that Roman in Gladiator when Maximus goes, "Are you not entertained?" We're like, "No, we're not. The story's
Yeah.
rubbish." Or
Yeah.
and
That's
so
the point, right?
That's
I
the
mean,
point.
that's-
So
that-
if we are doing that, it's because we don't know how to get past 300 words in the review without saying, without posting the "it's fine" dog, or saying it's really bad in these areas. I think he got a bit caught up as well in the movie exemplifies the worst of Malaysian filmmaking, thinking that it's a misunderstanding. We didn't quite call him on. I think he thought we said it's like the worst Malaysian movie, and it's not that.
Right.
It's the fact
But
that
actually, it's all of these aspects that
exactly.
are similar in bad Malaysian movies that seem
Exactly.
to get repeated over and over
It's
again.
like
Yeah.
we're going to
Actually,
try.
that's
We're
what-
going to try and do something huge instead of doing something on a scale we can actually achieve and excel at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's very clearly written in your review.
Mm.
It's very
Yeah.
clearly stated as to, oh, these are the things that keep happening in Malaysian film
Yeah.
that we keep getting disappointed by. And just to go back to the idea of a movie losing you, it's not just even about going past 300 words, right? I mean, it loses you while you're watching the film, which is why a window open in a car is suddenly just the most glaring thing
Yeah.
to you.
No, because the
So
thing
it's-
is, if there's
it's lost you.
again, we're not trying to remake the film, and we're not saying you should have done this, but there's a shot before it where they see the zombies and they look at them for 30 seconds, and the first thing you would think to do is like, we're going to plow through these. So unless you're making everyone wants to empathize with their heroes. You want to see yourself reflected in your heroes.
Yeah.
And when you think, why don't they roll up the windows? Is the aircon broken?
Yeah.
And again, and that's the thing, right? Like I was texting Uma a couple of nights ago. It just like all these things came up, and I'm trying to justify a lot of those decisions. I'm like, okay,
Reconcile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, like look,
Lose that scene. They just
if
come
you-
around the corner and they hit the bridge. Shit, there you go. No problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, drop in a line when they first get in the car because it's not their car. Oh, the aircon's broken. We have to wind the window. I mean, give us something. Give us.
But you know why
it's-
you know why the windows are open? so they can hear them talking with the boom mic.
I guess, yeah. And that's the problem, right? Like when it becomes a production issue that you then write into the story, it becomes ridiculous.
Well, that's the thing. It's a production issue that's not written into the story. If it was a production issue that was written into
That's
the story,
true.
like you said,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, the window doesn't
Yeah.
roll up. It's like, okay, fine. But then there's other problems where a character gets out and sacrifices themselves for nothing. So, I mean, these are all in the review.
Yeah.
We're going on. I think it does
No,
lead.
but also, I no, I was just going to say, I think there's a tone question as well, and I think when we talk about things like this, we can still say that, oh, look at those Fast and Furious movies. They may be incredibly stupid and add crazy, just insane elements, and yet still be enjoyable. I mean, Chris Pratt's Tomorrow War, which we reviewed last week, is a very good example of that. We could have tore that movie apart, right? We could have compared it to The Thing, even the prequel to The Thing. We could have compared to all kinds of stuff, but there was enough in that movie that kind of dragged us along by being pure entertainment that we were thrilled for that 1 hour and 50 minutes. And I think that's where the tone question comes in, because another thing, Ian, you mentioned in our podcast review of Zombitopia, you said the movie wasn't sure what it was because Raisi Sam was in one movie and Ron Polari was in one movie and Sharif Amani was in one movie. And so I don't think audiences are stupid. I think audiences really pick up on that stuff, whether they're aware of it or not. They don't have to be a film scholar. I think even if you've seen one movie in your life, whether it was good or bad, you kind of understand the structure of how it works, right?
And
so
this isn't. He kept falling back on. This is a fun Friday night chill at home movie. And it's like, where's the fun? There's no.
and I think
There's no. It's not. If everything had been done with a wink to the camera, the zombie dinosaur would have fit in perfectly.
perfectly.
Yeah.
Correct.
And if someone had just looked at, if someone had just looked at the camera and said, "What the," classic Deep Rising joke. What's his name? Deep Rising with Treat Williams. Every time things get worse, it's like, now what? Oh, now what? Like they emphasize everything, and it just gets more and more ridiculous, and it's so much fun. And this is not fun. But
anyway, check out the podcast because then you can hear Mingjin's side of the story as well.
Yeah.
So that's available on goggler.my or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get to this week's reviews. First up is a movie we've been wanting to talk about for a very long time, actually, but we've been waiting for a legal avenue to watch it. It's called First Cow, and it came out, I think it hit the festival circuit in 2019.
yeah, Telluride.
It was Telluride, okay, and it's directed by Kelly Reichardt, and it is set during the American frontier, I suppose, that time period, the 1820s, and it is the very definition of art house. I think you can call it that. The opening shot of a giant tanker slowly moving across the screen kind of reinforces that point.
Also confused the hell out of me because I thought this was like set in the Wild West or something.
I was gonna text
I didn't
you.
know. I didn't know how the movie was going to open as well. And when I saw that, I was like, did they have tankers in the 1820s?
Because I have to say, 2019 till now, I think people have gotten better on the internet, or else I just don't follow assholes on Twitter anymore because I had no clue. Like, I didn't know whether is this a cow becoming president, or is this some kind of love letter to a cow? And I was wrong on both counts, but we'll get to that.
I mean, like when it first opened, I actually paused and quit and like made sure I clicked on the right movie because, and then after that, not to spoil anything, but there's, again, it's a tanker, so it's set in modern times. So when they cut to a certain actress, I'm like, wait, she's in this movie? Why is she wearing modern clothes? Again, I had to pause and quit. I'm like, am I watching the wrong movie? And it's a really weird opening.
I mean, it's a framing device from the novel. It's based on a book by Jonathan Raymond, and Jonathan Raymond's novel, he co-wrote the screenplay as well. His novel kind of cuts between two time periods, but for the movie, they completely cut off all
the
of
second
the stuff
time period.
Set, in the present day. They focused it on this 2-week period and this friendship between our two leads, right? Which I think is a very clever thing. The novel is epic and kind of sweeping, and this one is a very intimate story about these two guys who decide to become entrepreneurs of sort by way of crime. There is a cow, the only cow in this place, and
In Oregon territory, the
basically-
whole territory.
Yeah.
in the whole territory, it's the first cow, right? Because
Yeah.
Toby Jones, God bless fucking Toby Jones, he's just amazing and everything. Anyway, Toby Jones wants milk in his tea, so he got a cow
Like the true
brought
Englishman
in.
that he is.
Yeah.
Yes, true English gentleman that he is.
Gentleman, I apologize. Yes.
So I was reading your review, Ian, and this worked for me. I think it worked for me more than it did for you. I guess the summation of your review is it's a really good movie, but it didn't speak to you, right?
Yeah, I mean, and some of that was, I think, just due to my high expectations because I'd heard so many people saying, "Oh God, it's coming to movie, it's amazing," and all that kind of thing. And I think also
You've been talking about this for like 6 months.
Yeah,
You've
when
been
I heard it was
when
coming,
did we watch First Cow?
yeah. And again, for anyone who thinks we're getting paid for stuff, we're not getting paid to talk about this on Mubi. It's the fact that, oh my God, we actually have access to an indie movie that we're like, we can actually get our hands on it. So I was, wondering whether it would actually appear on Mubi here or it was going to be one of those situations where it only appears in other countries. So I think for me, probably what might have made it sit better with me was if I did watch it in an indie theater, if I'd sat in a theater and sat through it as opposed to watching it at home on my screen. It takes its time. It establishes this kind of dread, right? It's not cowboys. This is one thing. It's like Oregon. It looks a lot like Ireland in November. It's just gray all the time.
Right.
There's lots of trees. They're eating squirrels. It's a bit like Monty Python. Everyone's covered in shit, right? Everyone's filthy. And most people are there just for trapping beaver, and that's not a euphemism, one. And two, these are rough and tumble men, right? I don't know whether do you guys get that sense of threat and that John Magaro's Cookie character was not perhaps well suited to this environment?
Yeah, he's a little sort of
for sure
soft-hearted
Soft.
and a little too nice. Yeah.
And also the other thing which I got from the film, and I think this is what Kelly Reichardt was going for because it seemed to really work, is she doesn't do that pause and consider thing for the sake of it. She's always showing you something. So you know how a lot of art house movies are slow burn because they will keep a camera on something for a very, very long time, etc., etc. But for here in this movie, she's actually showing you how life plays out. So there's a scene when both our characters, Cookie and King, go back to his shed, and he goes, "Oh, I used to hear I'll go make the fire, right?" And it says, really, it takes a long time. And I was wondering what is going on because she actually steps us through. The next scene isn't just a fire burning. Like, you see almost the whole process of how it's done and how painfully slow it is during that time period. So it's quite immersive in taking you into that world.
Yeah, and there's a Q&A at the end where they talk about they were sent on a camping trip where it rained the whole time and how to make fire and things like that. But the other point of that scene is character through action, because when he's told to chill, Cookie automatically picks up a brush and starts cleaning it. And
starts cleaning.
And another great thing is that, like, when we talk about this, you might be thinking about, cabins from Old West. Nope, this is literally like about 27 planks arranged slightly like a house.
Yeah. And I think the reason it worked for me was because of all of that stuff. I think I had an idea of what I was getting myself into. And so for me, it was a very immersive film in that it was very different from the other Westerns I usually watch, where there are actual heroes and villains.
Yeah.
And then for me, what made this very interesting is all of that capitalist conversation that goes on. And of course, that's the point they're trying to make, right? I mean, this is the American frontier. If entrepreneurship is such an American trait, how does it actually, what are its origins? And here you have people talking about money and how much money, how to make money. They talk about the role of individuals and whether killing someone is worth more than keeping them alive. It's like it takes the economic angle on almost every decision, which I thought was very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, there's a point where they're talking about it and they're saying this is a land of opportunity as this friendship grows, and they're saying, but you have to have capital, and where are you getting that capital is from opportunity or theft, and an awful lot of America is built on one kind of theft or another, right?
Yes,
and that's, I mean, and they also, it's a nice thing about bringing a little bit of sweetness to the lives of these people, like the fact that they just make nice cakes. It's like a little bit of sweetness in this life where, you just everything is so filthy all the
I
time.
mean, that first time they go to the market to sell these little cakes, it was great acting on the part of everybody, right? Like they bit into it, and their face sort of lights up. There's a sunshine that the ground has never seen that sort of crosses all their faces, and I think that was especially like Toby Jones, right? Was it Toby Jones?
Yeah,
When the what was he called? The chief, I can't remember.
Chief Factor.
He Chief Factor. Sorry, thank you. When he first bites into one, his face sort of just lights up, beams, and he talks about how it tastes of London. And I think that was you're right, Ian. That was a beautiful moment of just light in this really shitty place that they found themselves in. Yeah.
I only have one, I guess, warning to anybody who wants to watch this movie. I had a false start. Don't watch this at night if you're tired.
Oh, yeah.
You need to
Right.
be in the right mind space for it, because it is an incredibly slow burn. So I had a false start where I was 10 minutes in and I had to stop, and I was like, nope, I'm gonna fall asleep. If I continue watching this now, I need to be fresh in the morning.
I made the reverse bad decision. I put it on. I was about 40 minutes in, and then you texted me, Umar, and say Loki's out. I'm like, oh shit,
Oh.
I have to stop this. So then I went to watch 40 minutes of Loki, and came back to this. And I'm like, yeah, there was a real sort of big gear changes in speed there.
But did
this
you enjoy
one
it, Bahir?
didn't quite work.
It didn't quite work
Didn't
for you
work
either?
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I echo everything you said, Ian. It's an incredibly well made movie. There are no plot holes, right? The universe works, the story works. It's just that maybe it was a mood thing.
Yeah, just not for us.
It just wasn't for us. I think it was. I kept asking myself, why am I watching this movie? There is no like you said, Umar. There's no villain. There's no hero. Nobody. It's not a win against a loss. There's
Capitalism
it
and
feels
time
like
are the villains. Come on, man.
yeah, but it feels like nothing happens, right?
Yeah.
And there's a time when you feel like you can take a movie where nothing happens and you just get swept up in it. But it feels like this feels like Nomadland for me. Beautiful, excellent filmmaking. But why am I watching this movie? Nothing is happening.
I don't know if this is the best time to watch this film, right? I mean, I'm sure you guys sense it as well, whether you're on social media or not. People have been stuck at home in Malaysia now for a month. We don't know
Yeah.
when this FMCO is going to end, and there is a mood, right? There is this
Yeah.
just sense of downness, and
Yes.
I don't know if this is the best movie to watch because, like you said in your review, Ian, there is a constant sense of tension and dread, which I think
Yeah.
people are feeling every day now.
Already, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when 4 p.m. rolls out and the latest numbers of how many COVID cases come out, it's like you're waiting for that shoe to drop.
Yeah.
And maybe
And I
this
think-
is not the best movie for this
Yeah.
environment.
And it feels like now more than any time we need escapism, right? Like Fast 9 will be amazing right now, right? We just need to sort of go to space. We need to sort of to not have to be worrying about going out tonight and getting some milk from a cow.
And also because nothing happens in the film, like nothing
Yeah.
really happens. So
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
rising tension. And
Yeah.
because of that, even when the movie ends, it just kind of stops,
Yeah.
which feels like our everyday right now.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
kind of it does leave
It
it on
just
a
ends and
it,
starts
it
again,
leaves
yeah.
enough to infer. There's that guy in the woods that will probably end things. But I kind of was hoping, like John Margaro
something
and
to
Orion Lee.
happen.
John Margaro and Orion Lee. I love John Margaro. I mentioned in my review when I watched Overlord, I was convinced he was in Band of Brothers because he just looks like he was great. That he was great in the Big Short. He was Leonard in the Umbrella Academy. Like he's fantastic in everything he does, and it took me a while to recognize him in this because everyone's covered in beards.
I'm still not sure if I've seen him before. He looks familiar, but
Remember in the
I don't
Umbrella
know
Academy,
whether-
the guy who kept trying to get Ellen Page. Ellen Page?
Yep.
That's their name now?
No,
They've changed
no,
their name.
no, that's
no.
not his name now.
What's his
Yes,
name?
they
Elliot.
have
Elliot
changed
Page, sorry.
Elliot Page. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please forgive me. The person who kept trying to get Elliot Page to play the violin. That was him.
Yes, it was.
Oh, man, I'm blanking.
That's me. But he either disappears into a row in a certain way, but I just like
Yeah.
he's one of those guys I keep my eye on. But the relationship that does build with him between him and Orion Lee, who was in Star Wars, If you look at his IMDb, it got to the point where I was hoping that opening was a red herring.
Right.
I really wanted it to be
right.
something, and
So
then
you
when
were
it wasn't,
hoping there was some kind of motive.
yeah, or trick to it, or it wasn't exactly what I thought it would be, and then I was pretty bummed. But I think it comes to bring back to what we talked about a little bit earlier. This movie was made for $2 million. I didn't think you'd get Rene. Again, sad to see Rene Auberjonois in one of his final roles, but it's a great role where he's just a trapper who's like comes out of his house in the town and just looks at people because there's no television.
And just kind of mutters under his breath.
No.
Yeah.
Fancy boots.
Who's
Fancy
that?
boots.
Who's that guy? Oh,
Rene
He's from
Auberjonois.
Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
He's Odo in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He was in Benson.
oh, no wonder.
Yeah.
I don't know I don't watch any of those shows.
He's been in loads of things.
Yeah.
But it's only $2 million, and like they don't feel the need to do, like I said, the huts are very rude because that's what they are at the time. The
But it
costumes.
looks really expensive, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but
it looks.
because it's setting out what it needs to do. It needs 3 huts. And it like even what you call it, Toby Jones's house. Okay, that's a real house they went to. That's one location. The rest of it is just Cookie stumbling in the woods looking for mushrooms, which is like you get a lot of production. I mean, maybe that was a nightmare to film because of weather and stuff like that. Because it looks like it's overcast all the time, and overcast usually leads to rain. And I don't know how that would screw up their filming schedule or anything. But I think it was shot pretty. I think it was shot pretty quick. I think we should say there's a Q&A at the end where they talk about the making of the film and things. But it should. This is what if we're talking about what Malaysian cinema should be trying to do. It's something on a level of this. Like, I mean, 2 million is what? It's like 8 million ringgit, right?
Yeah, 9. Yeah.
What's the average budget of our big finance?
That's a shit. That's a shit.
That's a lot of money. Average
Yeah.
budget over here for a big budget movie is about
1.22.
I don't know, for big budget. So I think the Posivos and the Jays kind of push it to about 5 or 6, right?
Yeah.
But those
but that's
are
not
the
the average,
exceptions.
though.
Yeah, no, for big budget. For I would say most movies here are mid budget, which is about 1.2 to 2. And then Kuman is
but on
trying
a-
to
but
do
on a
everything for 200,000, 300,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you look at, again, we can get brickbats for this, but like I wasn't mad on the ending of Row, but like the production design on Row and the production design on this, you could say are of a standard, right?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
And
I think they use the money very well in Row.
that's what you have to do. That's what and they use a single location nearly most of that movie as well. And that's what
and
the
I think-
movies. That's what they should be focused on. Tell a story in what you have, not on what you want.
Yeah. And I think, look, this again, I said this wasn't my First Cow wasn't my cup of tea, but First Cow is the example of what we should do as an industry, right? See if you can tell a story where 2 people are talking and let that be immersive, interesting, exciting. Before you start throwing in flying cars and fucking dinosaurs, you know?
Don't fuck the dinosaurs. That won't get past VNAS, but yeah, no fucking dinosaurs.
No, sure.
We need to go for my dinner with them in.
Yeah, it's this idea that that the American industry has gone through an evolution. They've done, The Graduate. There are no car chases in that one. There are no explosions. Why can't we do that first before we try and recreate Jurassic Park or Fast and the Furious? We have to settle telling a story first before we add sprinkles and cherries on top.
It boils down to storytelling, right? Storytelling and
Yeah.
marketing, right? And that's why even something like First Cow can work so well and only requires a small budget by American movie standards because they've got such a solid script in hand. And whatever your thoughts about the film, whether it works for you or not, there's no denying that it is so well written. The dialogue is incredible. It is so well crafted and put together. And I think for that reason alone, whether art house cinema is your thing, this is an experience that you should check it out.
Agreed. Yeah.
And as we've said many times already, it's available on Mubi legally in Malaysia. Woohoo! So you can check it out for reals.
And again, we're
Clear
not getting
copy
paid.
and everything.
We're not getting paid, but there is a 7-day trial.
But we should.
Yeah, we should. Hey,
we
Movie,
should.
how you doing? How you doing? But yeah, there's a 7-day trial you can sign up for as well. So watch this and Dread and Kickflip and
Correct. Yeah.
KL Zombies on there as well. And the Three
Oh, is
Colors
it?
trilogy. Yeah, that I was looking. That's the only one of his movies that's on there. And the Three
Okay.
Colors trilogy, which I need to get around to because I never got it the Tartan video or whatever it was back in the day. So I should just watch those because they're classics.
All right. Check out First Cow. It's available on Mubi.my. If you are a subscriber to Movie, if you are a subscriber to Movie, do let us know what you think about the service because we've been trying to figure out what people are watching on Mubi and what they're enjoying on Mubi because it has a very interesting curated selection of film, unlike the Netflixes and the HBOs that just kind of add everything, right?
And they also
All of
have a
this
lot of
feels
classic Malay films.
yes, they
You
do.
know, there's a lot of I think because I've signed up to the Malaysian sort of version of the service. I get emails
Yeah.
about this Malay movie is on there. You know, I think
Yeah.
some of the Sudirman stuff is on there. There are a couple of OG Ahmad Daud stuff that's on it. So it's this. If you're looking for 70s 80s Malaysian films, Mubi is your place to be.
Cool. All right, First Cow now streaming on Mubi. Up next, the final installment of the Fear Street trilogy drops on Netflix as you are listening to this. It's called Part 3, 1666. It continues the story that started in 1994 and 1978. This one, if you've seen 1978, you know there's a little bit of a flashback thing, and it takes place in the year 1666 and tells you the origins of Sarah Fear, which is who is the witch that is spoken about throughout the series. I will come right out and say this is one of the most enjoyable trilogies I have seen in a long time. I don't know if it's because I got to see it week after week, and so I was fulfilled and satisfied, but I think it's more than that. I think it is. They are three movies that manage to create a sense of mystery, suspense, and kind of deliver a very satisfying ending for me. So I didn't
Mm,
feel like I was cheated by it. So when I finished the surprise at the end, the twist at the end, and even the resolution, all of that felt like a ride. And I had a great time watching these films. I wasn't, like we said earlier, I love horror slasher movies and I wasn't nitpicking stuff and going, oh, Scream did it better or this movie did
yeah.
it better. And
Simpsons did it.
I, w- Simpsons did it. Yeah. I was just along for the ride and I had a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for something else we did, we looked into these a little bit more closely than maybe we would have at first glance. And I was happy that, unlike a WandaVision or something, like it actually rewarded that level of
Yes.
movie
Of
OCD.
that, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we literally I got to the point where I was looking at the lyrics of the songs. Were like,
Mm,
did they use a computer to find songs that matched from the time period with their plot? Because there's things said about characters, and it's like he is the man who walks alone later on in this
yeah.
series, and there is a
Yeah.
skeleton hand. And even the last one does that. And I was a bit worried with this because it is going the flashback route. And there was the wonder of, is it a flashback or is it the character who's flashing back gets to influence things? And they thankfully skipped that completely and just went to, you're experiencing someone else's life. That's fine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was
You're
great.
just watching.
Yeah. And it's surprising for like movies, characters they didn't give a crap about 3 weeks ago. It was nice seeing the actors back again in as the village people in 1666, not the band, but the people of the village, and just seeing them in different roles and everything. And it's like, oh, and yeah, it was really, really enjoyable. And did you see? So there is a slight twist in the tale. So did you guys see that coming?
I
No.
didn't.
Oh, really?
No. Yeah.
The,
No.
the you mean the reveal
Yeah,
of the bad guy, etc.,
yeah,
etc., all that stuff?
Yeah.
Nope. I was
No.
like I said, I think I was talking about this in 1978 when we were reviewing 1978. I was caught up in the magic trick. I was ready to be fooled.
yeah,
Right? I was
Right.
watching and I was just like, let's see where this goes, baby.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And so when it happens, I was like, oh, of course. But
yeah.
I was surprised. So I didn't
Mm.
go 10 minutes in. I wasn't like, bad guy, good guy. You know?
Yeah.
So that was nice. What I liked about 1666, however, was how different it was in the way Lee Janiak shot it.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
thought she talked about taking inspiration from Terrence Malick. And now that I've seen the film, it really is like it feels like it's all dusk light, candle light. I mean, I just love the lighting and the color saturation on this town in 1666.
But even the
completely immersive.
Yeah, and even the way it's shot, the camera work is completely different. You know, the
Yeah.
first two kind of similar, but in this one, it took me a while to get into it. I was a little thrown back by when they went to the flashback. The camera work suddenly shifts. There's a the cuts are a little more awkward. The camera is a little more shaky.
It's a bit
And
more handheld,
it's a
wide.
bit more handheldy, a bit more wide. It's a lot more setting the mood than the first two were. You know.
Yeah.
And as a guy who doesn't like horror, I was sad that this movie ended because I'm like, oh, I've got no more Fear Street to play with. You know? Which
This is your
well,
favorite horror trilogy of all time.
yeah, hell's yeah. I mean, and that's a weird place to be because at the end of this, I was like, I mean, you know, in the third act, I was like, okay, we're now solving the problem because, you know, part one sort of sets up the part two sort of gives you background. Part three, the first part of part three gives you even more background, and then they just, you know, literally say part two, 1994 part two. They really sort of just like, okay, here we're
Yeah.
gonna solve this issue.
I was
now.
going to talk around that, but I laughed. I belly laughed when I saw that title card.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was just like,
I enjoyed that. Yeah.
because it's quite
Yeah.
again. It's not early. Like it does. The 1600 section does feel of a piece. Like it doesn't feel
Yes.
rushed. It has its own
No,
pacing
it's a
and
movie
everything.
in itself.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
lighting, the lighting you pointed out was true. It's like, man, the amount of like we so many people talk about having problems to go to bed, or like what's that thing called where you do, is it sleep punishment or something like that, where you don't, or sleep delaying. It's like you don't want to. You was like went to bed early yesterday, so I want to stay up late tonight or something like that. Or I have to get up early in the morning, so I want to stay up late to get the most out of the day. And it's like,
Yeah.
shit, man, the day ended at 4:30 back in the day,
Yeah.
and you had shitty candles,
Yeah.
you couldn't
Yeah.
do shit by. And
Yeah.
but it
I mean,
doesn't look murky.
It doesn't look murky, yeah. And I think like for me, it was that thing where where Seraphia's brother wakes her up and goes, "It's you're up late. It's 6:30."
Yes.
Like, whoa, whoa. That's
I've already done all the chores.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, god dang.
And then,
Yeah.
and then
No.
the 94 section then goes back to the style of the first section, which was just this. It's green and purple and red neon stuff, which is great. It looks
Well,
great.
it just sort of really doubles down on that neon stuff in the later parts of that section, and that was it was beautiful. I think it was great. Yeah.
I think having the extra time to tell the story over 3 parts really helps in the sense that I enjoyed the fact that all of these characters developed a sense of agency by the end of the film. So, you know, normally when that happens in a slasher flick, it's in the last 6 to 10 minutes, right? Because that's all the time they have in a 2-hour movie. And that's when, you know, either the final girl or the final guy develops, you know, a sense of growth. It's like, I'm going to take on this murderer. But
And a
here you have
magical
it-
sense of ability.
Right, but here you
Yeah.
have like 20 to 30 minutes where they're trying to work out how to end this, and
Yeah.
that felt satisfying. It didn't feel rushed at all, and also they get the tables turned on them a couple of times, so there's a nice momentum to it.
There's a great
There's also a
monster
nice-
mash, which is just like very
Yeah.
satisfying to see.
Yeah, but also there's a great sort of development over the 3 films, right? The strategy that they come up with isn't just I know what to do now in the last
right.
6 minutes, you know.
It's based on
it-
everything they've learned along the
Yeah,
way.
it's and also everything we've learned as an audience, right? 4 hours, 5 hours worth of film that we just go, yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's everything is there. When Gillian Jacobs' character sort of says a line at the end, and you go like, I know what you mean. You know, I'm gonna carry him. Carry him where? Sorry. But that worked out. I mean, it makes sense. Everything sort of made sense in that final big boss battle, and it's great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a super fun big boss battle too.
Yeah.
Great big boss battle. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more to talk about, but you can't do it without getting into spoilers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff.
I mean, yeah, you don't, and this one specifically feels like you don't want to spoil it, because so as I was trying to watch it yesterday in advance of this recording, my wife sort of walks in and goes, "Oh, what are you watching?" And I immediately paused it, and I'm like, you cannot watch this. She was like, getting on my, she was trying to like get on me about that. I'm like, no, you can't, because that's like watching the final Lord of the Rings. You'll enjoy it, but you won't have any of the emotional baggage. You won't have any of the story background, right?
The emotion.
Yeah.
You won't have any of the emotional baggins.
Hey!
Ayo.
Who's that tree guy? Oh, that's the worst. That's what I haven't brought up on any of these yet, but that's what my mum used to do as she was walking through the room because she refused to sit down because she had to clean something.
Who's that guy?
Something had to be cleaned. Who's that guy? Is he a tree? What's that? Is that Christopher Lee?
Yeah.
I thought he was dead. Oh, I thought he was dead. I thought he died in the previous movie. They're very short, aren't they? You know, it would just be that kind of stuff. And that's the
Yeah.
worst. You can't, this is like, watch the first two.
It's not even that. It's just, my wife's gotten to that point where she knows not to badger me with questions anymore because I'm just going to shoot her a look or pause the movie and spend 30 minutes just doing a whole thing.
Oh, you do that. I'm just usually like, wait. And then someone else will just ask the exact same question on screen. There you go.
But in this instance where it's, where you're jumping in on a third part of a 3-parter, there's going to be questions about background, right? So
yeah,
just watch the thing, right? And I think we don't want to go into it because if you haven't seen 1, 2...
And people haven't, and we're live on the internet, so it's not live yet.
and that's true. Yeah. We forgot about the live aspect of this situation.
But we can say, like, all the actors, I think, is something as well we haven't touched on the previous times. Like, they are all very... I think I saw complaints about the first one being slightly formulaic, but the formulaicness is the point.
exactly.
And they don't fall... We talked before, they don't fall into the stereotypes you would typically have. They start off that way, but they go beyond it. Everyone's pretty great. Like, everyone really does... my IMDb crashed. Everyone does a great job in this. Like, they're all fantastic. I hadn't seen the sheriff in... I don't think I'd ever seen him in anything, and he turned up in Succession, and I was like, something's not right here. We started watching it recently. I was like, that guy looks... I don't know.
Is he a good guy?
I don't know.
Hey.
Oh, hey. I think I can safely recommend this for anyone. Like, if you enjoy film, you don't have to be a horror movie fan, you don't have to be a slasher movie fan, because I think there's stuff in it for you, and I think the way these characters have developed or are developed go beyond what we usually see in slasher movies. I think if you're a fan of Stranger Things, you'll enjoy this. I think if you're,
if you weren't a fan of Stranger Things because it was you didn't get the references because you're a '90s baby, this might be more for you actually.
That's true. No, but also this hits what the Duffer Brothers were talking about with Stranger Things, right? It's got the Spielberg, Hitchcock, Carpenter,
King,
Fields,
Goonies thing,
the Goonies thing. So it kind of covers all of these landmark movies from various periods in film history, and so there is something for you, irrespective of what kind of films you enjoy.
But then what's quite smart is it abandons all of that in this third one, like for most of this part, like the 1666 section. It doesn't really reference anything, It's I mean, maybe it's the Scarlet Letter or the Witchfinder General, maybe because like they all wear pointy hats or whatever, or the clothing looks the same. But it
kind of references itself.
Yeah,
which is very cool. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think if you're not a horror fan, I think you should watch this. I think you should give this a go. Don't get turned off because you think it's horror, because there will be a lot here that you will enjoy, and I think a lot of the bugbears I have about typical slasher films, this movie sort of, I wouldn't say they address it, but they sort of really go at it. They don't like you say, Ian, they don't hide the fact that they are referencing these films, and it's not copying. They really are homaging and doing their own thing after that. This is sort of like, for me, this was like watching Shaun of the Dead if you don't like horror movies. If you don't like zombie movies, it's that, yes, it's a zombie send-up, all of it is there, but you will enjoy it because they take it
works on so many levels.
Turn at every corner. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, but we should mention, I think because we've mentioned, we brought up Stranger Things and things like that, it is still rated R on IMDb.
That's
so
true.
There is, like, we are probably a little bit more, we all sat through Hereditary and were like weeping internally and crying. I just freaked out. There is, the second, people get axes to the face or area quite a lot in the first
Several
two parts.
times. Yeah.
So, and it doesn't shy away from that stuff. So I would say watch out for that.
Yeah, it shows you everything. There is sex as well, but it's kind of slasher movie sex. It's not overly explicit, right?
Yeah.
But no, a Fear Street trilogy, definitely check it out. We think you will enjoy it. We highly recommend it. It is a very satisfying, or they are a very satisfying three movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's
all
it's
good.
horror girl summer, not hot girl summer.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still curious as to what they're going to do with the franchise because I think Netflix has a hit on its hands. So
There's
they will
decades
never
left. There's decades in the franchise.
yeah,
Literally, we've got the 2000s and everything.
I don't know if I want more.
they will never leave that kind of money on the table. No, as in I don't think they'll probably because R.L. Stein has five
No, you're
million
right.
books.
You're
I
right.
think
Yeah.
there are different things to tap into because
Right.
he
Instead of doing
covers every kind of slasher horror thing
Mm.
throughout the ages.
Yeah. Did they say where this is? Where's the town? Like, did they give it a region or an area? Is it like West? I mean, it's Puritan, so it's got to be East Coast, right?
Like Stephen King Town, maybe.
Oh yeah, I was going to say move it to Maine, but it could be
Maine.
it could be Maine. Yeah. So there is. I mean,
Yeah.
you could do other things in the 60s or the 70s. You could do earlier in the 70s. You can do your version of Psycho, do a black and white one. Set it somewhere else.
Yeah.
There's plenty of potential in this Fear Street universe. Hey. All right. Check out Fear Street, parts 1, 2, and 3, 1994, 1978, and 1666. They are streaming on Netflix. Up next, this is where you stop watching if you haven't seen Loki. We're going to get into some spoilers. We're just going to, give us our thoughts on the season. I think we reviewed the first 2 episodes when they dropped, and we haven't really spoken about it since.
Also, if you're watching our live stream, now's when you turn off if you haven't seen it.
Yeah. Also, now's the time to leave the comments, which someone did earlier, talking about the Jerry Derulio said, "All good. That podcast is so funny." The one we were referring to earlier. So you can comment while we're live. I do see them. I do remember to check after the first fuck up.
We're trying to work out our kinks, yeah. But if you're watching the live stream and you haven't seen the final episode of Loki, look away now.
All right, here we
Prune
go.
yourself. Prune yourself from the live stream.
End up in the void. All right, here we go. Loki season 1. We can call it season 1.
Yeah.
I guess that's the big reveal, right? The fact that a season 2. This is the first MCU TV series that has scored a second season. I think Kevin Feige they were hinting about it throughout the press. I think everyone was asking, "Oh, will this have a second season?" Their answers have always been, "Anything can happen."
I think Tom Hiddleston kept saying like, "Oh, this will, Loki." What he said? Loki would be a great place to start season 2, or there's room for season 2. There's a place for season 2.
Has he not mentioned
the story doesn't end here?
Yeah, has he not mentioned it? And maybe in regards to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier as well. Like there was talk. I mean, they've hinted at like, well, maybe we could do a WandaVision 2, but that could just be red herrings. But
yeah.
So I think what some people were looking into was the Emmy nomination. So with WandaVision, it's been nominated as limited series. But Falcon and Winter Soldier is, I think, ongoing. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, really?
So that's quite
they're playing the spread.
Yeah, just waiting to see what happens. But also, I think with Falcon and Winter Soldier, because of the kind of success of that series, the fact that new Captain America movie got greenlit meant that I guess Marvel Studios is saying, hey, wait, we're not limiting these stories to just TV shows and movies. We're not making that distinction anymore. And I think that was reinforced for me in the big reveal of this final episode where Jonathan Majors shows up. Because a lot of the commentary that I was reading on the internet was, oh, wait, Jonathan Majors has been cast as Kang in the Ant-Man movies. There's no way they're going to introduce him
in a mere TV show.
Yeah, on TV and not in cinema. And I think this was the message of Kevin Feige going, actually, all of this is just as important.
All of this is it's all connected. You just keep refusing to use the catchphrase they came up with originally.
I refuse to use that catchphrase.
I have to remind you of this every time it comes up.
You know why? Why? Because they lied to me about Daredevil and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They lied to me for like 10 years, man. It wasn't connected. Don't just bring in Lady Sif for one episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and make it seem like everything is connected. Anyway.
But that reveal of season 2, I think, if you say during the credits, it says Loki will return in season 2 and a little kind of cute stamp thing. Because I was watching that because they have changed certain things in the credits of these shows, like when characters turn up, or they had the concept art for Richard E. Grant's Loki and things like that in last week's episode. This week it's more just Sylvie and Loki pictures. But if they hadn't had that there, like my mind was already thinking, oh wait, where do I need to go for the next bit? Because I thought I was like, is it
Like which
Ant-Man?
movie,
Where
right?
where was
Yeah.
Kang the Conqueror cast? And it was like, okay, season 2, that makes sense. But also, I felt if that hadn't been there, I would have been mad. And I wonder if a lot of people are going to be mad because it doesn't wrap anything up, really.
Well, this is what
I don't know, man. This
say.
is my favorite episode.
Really?
I think this is one of my favorite episodes. Yeah.
Do
So
tell.
I was gonna say, I was gonna say that for me, Loki works as a whole, but I had apprehensions when I was watching it week on week. Like, I think we mentioned this briefly. Oh, actually, I was speaking to this offline to you, Ian, just about episode 3 when it's just a Loki and Sylvie episode. I felt like that could have been done in 15 minutes. It didn't need 45 minutes because in my mind I was like, "There's only 6 episodes. Come on!"
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but they see, obviously they were listening to our commentary about Malaysian film and they said we need to tell a story with 2 people talking on a train.
Exactly. And so as a whole, Loki really worked for me, and I think that's the best way to consider it because after certain episodes, like the first 2 episodes, I felt set out this bold new direction for a Marvel series where it wasn't going to be rooted in action because. And that's something that still stands out. Every time I see Loki fight in an action sequence, I'm like, you're not really an action hero. I don't know if that really
It's
works
okay.
for me. It's okay.
It's okay. I think Tom Hiddleston does
He leans
okay.
he leans more towards Legolas than he does like Chris Evans, right?
Yeah, he's supposed to be a little more,
If it's got to be a fight, then the god of mischief has already fucked up, right? It's only when he screws up that happens. The rest of the time, he's got a plan. He's got a goal.
But only when I consider it as a whole, I go, okay, Loki is a show that seems to have real consequence on what's happening next in the MCU. And with WandaVision, like with Captain America and Falcon and Winter Soldier, there was consequence, but you know what? He already got the shield at the end of Endgame. So I'm just like, in my mind, he was already Captain America. I like that I got these episodes in seeing him make that decision.
Yeah, it's almost like backfill from the movie when we get the eventual movie, right?
Yeah.
With WandaVision, it felt more like, okay, we're retconning the origins of this one character that needs to play an important role in Phase 4.
But also with WandaVision, it feels like they're just closing off that portion of the story. They're wrapping it up. They're nicely closing it off. And you're right. The Falcon Winter Soldier thing feels like in the old days this would be a 6-issue comic run.
Yes.
Just to give you the.
No, and with Loki, it's all new. And so I think for me, that's what thrilled me most about series. Like the design, the cool, weird tech, the introduction of timekeepers, new characters, new concepts. All of that was like, yay, new things to play with, like a new toy box. And so, I really like the show.
Yeah.
I think
I was surprised when Jonathan Majors showed up.
Yeah,
I love him
very
so much.
surprised.
And also, he's playing such a kind of a fey, puckish character. You're like, is this Kang the Conqueror? And they set it out nicely that it's not. This is Kang the slightly less conqueror-y.
Conqueror guy,
But it is like nice that he remains like the person who waits at the end of time is basically, if it's not me protecting the timeline with a little bit of assholery, you get a bigger asshole's going to come along. And that's quite interesting for the way they're going to go. And that reveal at the end of this, like, Jonathan Majors' Kang outfit, like it's just a chest plate. That's all. But you're like, oh wow.
Yeah. And I sort of, I mean, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but like after 3 MCU shows, I decided to sit around for the translated. I don't know, for the dubbed cast list because they will have a credit name attached to it.
Oh yeah.
So Jonathan Majors' character in the English credits, they don't have the characters they play, right? They just sort of have the actors' names. But if you wait around for the sort of dubbing credits, Jonathan Majors' character is called The One Who Remains.
Yeah.
I checked for I sat there and checked for the German translation version, the Italian, and the Brazilian version. They all say the one who remains.
Yeah, they all do that. They do that as well in the actual subtitles when you're watching, because last episode
Right.
it had the boastful Loki, classic Loki, and kid Loki.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So when I texted that out to you guys, Uma, you made a interesting point that the one who remains is a character in the MCU, in the MC comic version, right?
Yeah. They change it up a little bit. So in the comic version, he's a separate character to Kang. Kang does
Right.
have relation to the Timekeepers. So the origins of Kang is a guy called Nathaniel Richards from 31st century. He discovers a time travel device from Doctor Doom, goes back to, I want to say, ancient Egypt, and sets himself up as Rama Tut, I think. I haven't read these comics in a very long time. And that's how he like gets humans to worship him, and then the Fantastic Four stop him, right? So the Fantastic Four have a lot to do with the story of Kang in the comic books. Here,
Also, he's purple
a little bit,
right?
Oh, and he's purple. Yeah.
Also, he's purple. Yeah.
Yeah. Here they've twisted that a little bit, and they've made the one who remains a variant of Kang. Both characters, like Nathaniel Richards in the comic books, is kind of like the one who remains we meet in this show, where he's like a historian, scientist type character.
Right. Yeah.
And when Jonathan Majors is talking about how they discovered the multiverse and all of that stuff, that kind of conversation kind of rings true to the character's origins in the comics. But here it feels like Kang is like an evil variant of the one who remains.
Yeah.
I thought it was. I loved how they set all of that up. Like it was only it's 40 minutes, and I thought the conversation between Sylvie, Loki, and him was really engaging and helped me and had me going throughout. I was just like, ooh,
same.
and then,
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
yeah,
Same. Yeah.
But how did he? So how did he know? How did he said we've crossed the threshold? How did he know that was? How was that when the notes didn't? That's as far as he like. Had he gone forward in time to as far as he could to see what the end was, and he just didn't know at that point there's a branching, because it didn't seem clear why everything was branching while they were there looking at him.
I thought what my understanding of that was they had already fucked things up, and he knew there was a point at which everything was going to go haywire, and so he was expecting them to make that decision before, because that was as far as he could see. And then after when he suddenly realized, I can't see any further, he goes, oh shit, we've crossed the threshold now.
I was like, what's that noise?
Like 10 seconds ago. Yeah.
But also it looks like he's having fun with it, right? He's and I love that Jonathan Majors plays out that character, because he's been around for eons, right? He's like, oh, finally we're, not to use the cliche, but we're finally in the end game. I now know nothing anymore, right? So at this point, everything's going to be fun, because he explains it like, how do you think I know that you're going to strike me? It's because everything's been written. So he pulls out a book and he pulls out the pieces of paper. But like at that point, he's like, "Ooh, that was beautiful." But I mean, at that point, when that point where Ian mentioned how he suddenly goes, "Oh, I don't know anything anymore," he sits there with glee. It's almost like, "Ooh, what's going to happen now?" Right? Ooh,
yeah.
Oh, if it's death that comes for him, so be it, because at least something else will happen now. It just feels like he's just bored out of his mind and he's ready to go.
He's bored with reruns, and now he's got a brand new show.
Now he's got a brand new fucking show. Yeah. I mean, watching Jonathan Majors in Loki made me want to go back and watch Lovecraft Country.
Yeah.
It was... I miss Jonathan Majors. That was although it's a completely different character, but it's a great... Jonathan Majors is great, yeah.
And we get to see him in the cowboy flick as well on Netflix.
And we've got the cowboy flick coming up, too. Yeah.
So what do we think happened with Loki at the end there? Because he jumped back, but Mobius and I can't remember her number were still talking about, like, the timelines were still branching, but Kang the Conqueror had seemed to have installed himself as the new timekeeper and had a sacred timeline that favored him, right?
I assume that he jumped back to a different...
Yeah, I thought he jumped back into another timeline.
Oh, he's in another timeline. Because I thought maybe that Kang had defeated him and then decided to, in order to ease the rest of the universe into the multiverse idea with the movies and things, or probably with What If, because like now, What If I thought was just going to be hey, what if? But now it could be like, There's now a
What
multiverse.
if?
I'm the
Yeah.
Watcher. Before I had one channel, but now, like Rick and Morty, I have multiversal TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
'Cause
I presume there's going to be a story that leads through What If now.
What if? Yeah, and that's a great. I mean, for me, I assumed it was a different dimension because Mobius turned to Loki and goes,
Yeah, who
"You're
are
an
you?
analyst.
Yeah.
Who are you? Well, you're an analyst, right? What
But
do you do?"
my,
So,
my concern was he wouldn't know things had gone wrong if he didn't know Loki. So Loki traveled back while Kang was resetting himself as the timekeepers thing, maybe. So it's like, I don't know. It depends where. I mean, it depends where the TVA is. Maybe the TVA, like maybe TVA is stored in Quantumania or the quantum realm, and that's why it's outside of time
Ooh,
because that's how
yeah.
it's going to tie into Ant-Man, right?
Because in the second Ant-Man, when we see the quantum realm, we see like different worlds, right? We see like cities or what looks like
Was
yeah,
it?
he
cities.
flies past. Yeah,
Huh.
Yeah, when he's like flying past stuff. So yeah, maybe the TVA is in the quantum realm. Who knows? I mean, like all of the movies that are coming out. So like we assumed there was a multiversal thing to Spider-Man because it's called No Way Home.
Oh, did you see his suit?
Um,
It was trending yesterday. He's a new suit. Did you see it?
Oh, really?
yeah,
I
because
haven't
the
seen
toys are out.
Yeah, it's black and
for the
gold.
suits, yeah.
So it's not
Yeah.
red and blue.
Oh.
But there's weird. It looks like, taxi drivers here sometimes have those little sleeves they wear to keep the sun off their
Yeah.
elbow. He has like red
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of, I think, but it's like the suit is black, but the detailing is gold. It's very odd
Isn't
looking.
that
Right.
wasn't?
Yeah.
Isn't that one of the suits in the game?
Maybe.
I think it might be. Yeah.
I think it might be. I've worn
And
that
then
suit. Yeah.
Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness is, or it's in the title.
It's in the title, yeah.
Quantumania definitely ties in some way if it's part of the quantum realm. So I don't know if Kang is going to be the Thanos, the big bad of this show, maybe of this phase, who knows?
Of
But
this phase, yeah, maybe.
because you don't know what's going to happen in Eternals, but it feels like they're now leaning into this whole multiverse idea, which brings me to my question for you guys. Is this the tipping point in which regular audiences can no longer get into the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Because we're watching it and we get all this stuff. We've read a bunch of comics. For me, there's now a level of complexity that feels hard to overcome.
Well, that's why last week I wanted to do one of these because I watched Loki. You guys didn't have time, so for once I was actually ahead of you two, and I was like, I want to talk to someone about the Thanos copter. Like I never even read that comic, but I know about there's a Thanos copter, and I was like, other people probably wouldn't care. I think I also mentioned the group chat. I don't think you responded. There was I just pointed the word Triebflugel. Yeah, Triebflugel. Did you see
Right.
that? It was like they walk past
No.
a ruin, and it's one of those. It's that rocket thing that has like it's like a helicopter, but it's the wings, and on the tips of the wings there's rockets that fire, and that's gives it.
Okay.
It's a VTOL that lifts like that and then
Yeah,
flies.
yeah.
That's crashed behind him, and it's just like there's so many possibilities here. I was happy with the second last episode. I was like, give me more of this. I think there was a helicarrier that had like
Yeah.
it had a shield on it, but it looked like it had a Hydra in the middle. A Hydra
Oh, I didn't
logo.
notice that.
There
Possibly
was-
because it was from a
yeah.
alternate
Alternate
timeline
universe.
anyway.
There was Ronan's spaceship was there as well in the background
Yeah.
somewhere. There was so many different things in the background. I was like,
There was
I mean,
Avengers Tower that wasn't Avengers Tower. It was
Yeah.
actually Kang's Tower. Yeah.
oh, was it Kang's Tower? I didn't see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It was,
Oh.
oh God, it was the name of the corporation that Kang runs
I
instead of
didn't see that.
Stark. Yeah.
Oh.
So there's-
I mean,
I
of
think
course,
that was a big
there's
hint.
Thor
Yeah.
in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, Throg.
Frog.
And he was
Also voiced by Hemsworth.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
that was
crazy.
great. Yeah. I mean, I think to answer your question, I think it feels like we have to see what the next couple of movies do. You
Yeah.
know, and I'm thinking from the point of view of someone like my parents who love the MCU movies, but
But they've seen them all.
no, but they've seen the MCU movies. So now
But
the
that's it.
question is,
They don't know anything
they
beyond
don't
that.
read the comics. They don't surf the internet looking for timeline maps. You know,
Right.
they don't look for character breakdowns. They don't listen to hour-long podcasts about the fallout of these things. And I don't think they've seen any of the TV shows either. So the question is, when the next one comes out, how confused will they be? And I have enough faith in Kevin Feige and the MCU to know that, for them to know that there will be a select group of audience who's just watching the movies
Yeah.
in the cinema.
And
Kevin
I think-
Feige, the keeper of the sacred continuity.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
Touchwood with Feige, he always does a good enough job explaining that stuff in the films, right?
Yeah.
Or explaining that stuff to newcomers. Because I was telling someone had watched Black Widow and they were asking me about the post-credit scene, and I don't know, I won't spoil that here because these are Loki spoilers. But they were like, "Oh, in that scene, this character is there, which no one will know unless they've seen this." And I'm like, "Well, I think you could have said the same thing about the Infinity War post-credits when the Captain Marvel pager thing happened."
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people who saw them was like, "What's that stupid symbol on the pager?" And I was like, in the cinema, right?
Yeah.
And but it's very quickly explained. So
Yes.
I think those tags are meant for the hardcore people.
Yeah.
And then
No, but they're meant for the hardcore people to get
'cause that's the
excited in the
subtext
8
to the
months
text,
between.
right? Yeah.
But when the next movie comes out, it'll explain it. So it's that kind of thing where you can either go on a search deep dive throughout the internet, or you could just wait for the next movie to come out and it will be explained for you.
And this having Loki return in season 2 was like okay, I don't need to think about it. I just need to wait for Loki season 2. Or it didn't say
the next movie.
Yeah, it didn't say Loki will return in Goldmember or Loki will return in Ant-Man Quadrophenia or anything like that, which was interesting.
Yep.
It didn't say that. It didn't say anything about Scarlet Witch will return in anything. Did it at the end?
No.
Yeah.
No.
We just assumed it would be because of casting news. We know she's in Doctor Strange.
And that's why we're the same about Jonathan Majors. People are like, who's this? He's the one who remains. Who's Kang? What are you talking about? But he's been cast. We know that. I do think.
If you just hang on, you'll know.
Yeah, I think. What did you say was your favorite episode again, Uma? The train one.
Actually, no. Bahir, like the last episode for me, my favorite was still the first two.
I think the last one
I
was
just
mine.
So excited.
Just the possibilities there, and also just Richard E. Grant. Just that.
Yeah.
For decades, they've been like, comic book costumes won't work on screen, and fuck all of you. Just look at that, and it's. Did you see his Instagram over the weekend as well? He was like, "My father always said you're going to be an actor. You'll be in grease paint and tights." And he's like, "Yeah, there we go, Dad."
Yeah, and I mean it's the same with what happened with in WandaVision, right? When we finally see Scarlet Witch as Scarlet Witch, and I think that was that argument about suits don't work on screen. They may not work in the original 70s 60s incarnation, but you can tweak it. You know
that Captain America suit was awful, man.
What in Avengers?
No, in the 80s TV show, the 70s 80s TV show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look.
When he had a bike.
Yeah, that was a miniseries of movies, wasn't it? Right? I think a friend of mine, his dad saw at the time. Is like the guy has polio and then takes a vaccine and he looks worse afterwards. He takes the super soldier serum. Sorry.
He wears a motorcycle helmet, right? That's the one.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
But no, Richard E. Grant was amazing, and just the way he carried himself was amazing. And the fact that it's only Loki's left, they're the only ones who survive Alioth, is a genius idea. Also, I was happy that because with only 6 episodes, you had seen it in the promo stuff. We were wondering when we were going to get President Loki, and whether Hiddleston just did something, the addition of a crown, or whether he was just grinning differently. His face, right? He looked different.
Yes. He does.
Yeah.
His face looked completely different. It was a grin.
Yeah.
Right? And he did something with his voice as well.
Yeah.
That was the coolest Easter egg was the kid Loki drinking the Ecto Cooler from Ghostbusters. Cheering with a can of Ecto Cooler. That was something. My God, man! When I was a kid, we never got those in Malaysia. I don't know whether you got it in Ireland.
No,
the high C.
Yeah.
Was it Ecto Cooler or was it just High
version?
C? Because it was High C in
It
Fear
was
Street
High
as well.
C, but I thought it was branded as the Ghostbusters Ecto Cooler.
There wasn't. No, that was a particular flavor, but was it the Ghostbusters one in Loki? Because in '94. It wasn't. It was just normal High C in Fear Street.
In Loki, it was the Ghostbusters one.
The other thing was
you can see it.
Yeah, the other thing in the background was there was a Polybius arcade machine. Have you heard about that? It's supposed to be it's an urban legend about an arcade machine that was supposedly put in places by the CIA or something, and people who played it had weird psychedelic experiences or whatever.
Wow.
But I think it's a completely made up
the
urban
last
legend.
Starfighter.
Yeah. But for drugs or for LSD, and it's just sitting in the background of their lair. So there's just so much fun stuff in that.
Nice.
Triebflugel. Again, I can't. I was just like, I have seen that. Like even googling it, I was like, Google. How do I Google this? It's like was it Nazis? I think it was Nazis. Nazis rocket-powered wing plane. No, that's not it. Is it this? Is it this? And then I found it. I was like, and it's perfect. I love it.
Yeah. So What If is next, and that's coming out August. Hawkeye is supposed to come out this year as well, but they've just said late 2021. So I guess we'll get a notification after What If drops. Who knows?
That Hawkeye series with was it Fabian Moon covers or Gabriel Barr or something like that? The one that the one with the pizza dog.
Yes, the one written by Matt Fraction.
Matt Fraction, sorry.
We think it's based on that.
There's some of it with the Kate Bishop and everything else.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't have a family in that.
That makes me kind of sad. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know why it struck me because there is, like we said, there's a teaser that might lead into that from one of the things we've seen, and I was like, hang on, I mean, he needs to be scruffy and kind of disheveled and also down. Oh, hang on, there's no family and there's no kids, and that'd be a downer because Jeremy Renner, he got to do his dark bit before, so like I don't know, because otherwise like. They lives in the fucking farm. How is he just going to be? Because he owns the building, right? That was the thing in the comic book. He owns the building and he starts helping.
The building, or
I think it was something about it was easier for him to just buy the building with some Avengers money or Stark money or something like that. So then that's how he starts ended up in people's lives because I think he's the super. I haven't read it in so long either, so I need to go back and reread that ahead of time. But that should be.
And then there's a ton of other stuff. There's Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk, all of that stuff is in production because we've seen like production stills leaked from the shoots and all that.
Because it's Ms. Marvel's the TV show and The Marvels is the movie, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
And She-Hulk has got Ruffalo in it, and Roth is coming back apparently for the TV series as well. So. Hey, they seem to like be bringing all this loose threads back into the MCU.
Except Edward Norton, because Edward Norton is locked in Universal, the Universal multiversal timeline.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, of course,
Edward Norton pissed everyone off while making that film.
But it's also they can't. That's the rule, right? They cannot make a movie based around with the Hulk as the primary name. It can't be. They can't make a Hulk movie because Universal have dibs.
Yeah.
Unless they do with Sony, and apparently that hasn't happened. So.
But also he, I think it's not been verified, but the story is that he tried to kind of usurp Louis Leterrier when making that movie.
He rewrote the script and all sorts of stuff.
And rewrote stuff. And really. And, Marvel Studios was in infancy at the time. There was also a very interesting article that came out. James Gunn has got a long piece in the New York Times. And he talks about his firing and he talks about superhero movies. He talks about how, he had called Feige after it happened. It just came out.
You bastard!
Yesterday. And no, he was like, is this a problem? And apparently Feige said, and Feige was as shocked as he is, because Feige said, I don't know. And during that conversation, and I think he was called back and he was like, the powers that be have decided to let you go. And he said apparently Feige was as shocked as he was with regards to being fired, and he thought everything was over. Like he thought, I've got to sell my house. I've got to like just.
I got to do a Hawkeye. I got to move to a farm.
Yeah.
Got to start tearing wood apart with my bare hands.
And he talks about just the differences between Marvel and DC, and he says how it's not as different as you would think, as many people make it out to be.
Because everything that DC outputs makes it look like on a management role, on a management side of things, it's just like Kermit in front of the Muppet Show screen, where he's like, freaking out. That's what it looks like all the time. Or Dexter from Dexter's Lab running around going, "My hair is on fire! My hair is on fire! My hair is on fire! My hair is on fire!" Did I see there are Suicide Squad stuff?
It's coming out in 3 weeks.
So I saw someone liked it. Yeah, so there's people that are seeing it.
I think they may have previews in UK cinemas. I think it's out end of July, and then I think HBO Max first week of August. So Suicide Squad very, very soon.
Yeah.
Well, no, not with 11,000 cases a day. No. All right.
Miss Minutes. Start with Miss Minutes as well. Miss Minutes was
Miss
fantastic.
Minutes scares the shit out of me. Fuck, like that when she's talking to Ravonna, in just that one line when she goes, he thinks this will be more useful. I'm just like, ooh, you evil cunning bitch.
So that was the cool thing. She had a pen from her school, so she knew she was a variant.
Yeah.
Like there's things there we haven't.
No, because Ravonna, when she talks to Owen Wilson at the end, she's still like the tone is, but the tone of her conversation is still, I refuse to believe it because this has got to mean something.
No, but I think that's when I was thinking that watching that I was like, this is very much, I don't know if it's a Marvel villain thing or it's a classic trope, because it's like, I can't live in a world where it means nothing, so therefore I have to impinge my beliefs on everyone, even if I don't believe in them, just to make sure make the world make some kind of sense. And Owen Wilson's like, but why? Why are we doing why?
Gosh.
Why? And so we don't know what this isn't the information I asked for. This is like it. The question is up in the air on how much she was clued in on. Like even when Miss Minute said, "Oh, he said this would be better for you," the information she gave her, and she's like, "Who's he?" She didn't know either. All she seems to know is that the timekeepers are a lie. She has some information, and she's gone somewhere. So,
but I think in her mind, she still thinks there's value in being loyal to this unknown he.
Yeah. So maybe she's gone to 31st century, or she was just like gone to the point beyond the branch where she could go meet Kang and say, "Hey, you're gonna need a gameskeeper to keep everyone in place. So how about I just do the TVA again? It'll be like you've always done it because time, and also we'll put a statue up of you in the hallway." Which will come in handy later for exposition purposes. So maybe it's that, I don't know. But I wonder, when you're using those TemPads, does it bring you to multiverse? Does it skip, or is it you're still in the same timeline? We also have this kind of stuff. Oh, that's the other thing that we said things fly past. So they had voiceovers in the opening logo for the first time.
Yes.
First time ever?
Yeah, I think so.
No. One episode of WandaVision, they had it over the intro when we meet.
Yes, you're right.
When we first meet Teyonah Parris' character. Yes.
Yeah.
Whose?
In the hospital.
In the hospital. When we're flashing back to the events of the snap.
Oh, okay.
So they do the whole but that's contained to clips from Captain Marvel.
Yeah. So this was like a lot of clips from all over the place. I didn't see a thread through them. One of them, when someone said time, it was one of the scrolls from Marvel said, Mr. Marvel. I thought there was something about time is like the cage that binds us all or something like that. It wasn't the time is the fire which we burn from Star Trek Star Trek Generations. But I thought that was different enough, but it might have been from something else. But it doesn't seem like any of them indicate anything. But when we did
just kind of cutting from superheroes to real life superheroes. Malala.
So it was like was Contact the first movie that did that, where they did the whole zooming out thing? Because it's been done multiple times now. Because it's at the end of Men in Black.
Yes.
But
all of them.
Contact, it made sense because they were literally it was a signal from space you were following.
Yeah.
Past the Voyager probe, which I presume is the Voyager probe, didn't look like Pioneer. Didn't know. Didn't screenshot. Don't know. Can't spot them in the lineup. But there was a spaceship, and it looked like a funky shuttle. It didn't look like a Ravager wings on top craft, right? Unless it was upside down.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Yeah.
So again, the Mephisto brain kicks into gear, right? The kind of like wild speculation, and there has been a Fantastic Four logo. Could the Fantastic Four be on that ship trapped in space?
Bombarded by cosmic rays.
Yeah, because it also looked a little bit like the ship from the opening of the old Gil Gerard Buck Rogers show. Yeah. His shuttle looked a bit like that.
But now that there's a multiverse, I mean, you don't have to. You can bring in the X-Men and the Fantastic Four from different universes. Right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
Although I still do kind of that idea that they bring the Fantastic Four in, as in they're heroes from the '60s that have been trapped somewhere till now.
That would be glorious.
Because it's a completely different vibe to Steve, but also like, hey, Daddy-O, it's Goldman, it's Austin Powers again.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I would hate if they did the DC TV thing of like, oh, they're from different universes. You'll never see them again except for special episodes.
Except for every different flavor of Harrison Wells.
Yeah, I mean, like
57
it'd be nice if there's a.
They finally stopped that, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah, he's left the series.
He's left the series.
Yeah.
No, but like how in the.
Are you sorry, Bahir? This is this bit.
Yeah.
Are you saying the Wells is dry?
The Wells is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was a good.
Okay, back to you, Bahir.
Okay. No, like in the special sort of DC crossover episodes, they say like, oh, Supergirl's from a different universe, so from a different timeline, multiverse
channel. She's from a different channel.
I know, but that's the thing, right? So they're treating it like a different channel, so she'll never show up again until the next special crossover. Whereas I hope if they bring the X-Men, they bring the X-Men. It's not they'll come in. one big bad fight with whoever, and then they leave again, and then
No,
we'll
no,
never
no.
hear from them?
Well, once they do War World, what was it? Once they do the updated Secret Wars, it'll all be put together on Earth. What do they call it now in
Well,
Marvel?
they've got Armor Wars and Secret Invasion.
No, but there was, oh
Mm.
yeah, those are coming up. But I'm saying like they probably rename or they'll take elements from Secret Wars, where the multiverse collapsed down and there was War World, which Doctor
Right.
Doom just saying this stuff is like, Christ, storyline's they got away from you there, guys. He formed a place where like everyone was bits and pieces of everyone, then they battled, and then it
Yeah.
split apart again. But it'll just be like that, where oh no, Loki will say like, who's that guy with the claws? It's like, well, he's Wolverine. He's been here for years. You don't know who Wolverine is? What are you, an analyst? You know, they'll just do that shit again, right? Someone will know. And it'll just be that way, you know, in the end.
Yeah.
Because multiversal, it's like, it can weaken your storylines a little bit because there's a slight worry of like, well, why does it matter? I think that's something that happened in comics, right?
No,
Yeah.
it does happen in comics, and I think that's something I hope they really move away from. I hope they move away from the fact that death has no consequence. So
Mm.
even in episode,
But you see,
4 of
but they're
this,
bringing the
episode
X-Men
3 of
with
this,
Jean Grey, so come on, man. That's her whole thing, man.
That's the whole thing. But also, but in episode 4 of this, when Owen Wilson gets pruned, there's an impact when it happens, but then your brain kicks in, going, it's comics. He's probably just gone somewhere else. He's not dead.
I didn't think
And-
that until
That
Loki
has
got
to
pruned.
mean something, though.
Yeah,
Okay,
if Loki hadn't got pruned, if Loki got pruned at the beginning of the next episode, or if they hadn't had that awesome scene from Happy Gilmore from the clouds with the crocodile and everybody, like you said to me right here, if they hadn't had that, it would have been a very
Yeah.
interesting week.
But for me,
Yeah.
even with comics, you need to get rid of that trope, right? And for me, it's like just don't kill anyone. It doesn't. Everyone knows it's meaningless. Like, I know Marvel's doing a whole storyline in a few months called the Death of Doctor Strange, and I'm just like, really, death, whatever. Maybe.
But
for a year or
comics,
two.
it's fine in comics because comics are monthly. Movies aren't monthly TV
I
shows.
guess.
These TV shows take more than a month to put together, so
Yeah.
that's fine because they can do all that crazy shit in the comics, but then just keep it like, Tony Stark. Tony Stark can't come back. You just can't. I mean, you can have an
Yes.
AI version,
Yeah.
you can have a thing. If he comes back,
Yeah.
then he becomes the Jean Grey of the Marvel universe, the cinematic
Exactly.
universe.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
Oh, actually, before we go very quickly, something that annoyed me as well, and I guess he didn't want to do this, but not having Robert Downey Jr. voice the character in What If sounds really weird. In the What If
Yeah,
trailer,
that sounded. Yeah,
the voice is slightly higher pitched,
it's higher pitched. Yeah.
and it's a weird contrast because Sebastian Stan's voicing characters and Chadwick Boseman is, and so a lot
Are we
of the
sure? Are we sure
original
that he
actors.
isn't?
Well, it doesn't sound like Downey Jr. at all.
I'm
Was he
I'm just
just-
wondering if it's
once he,
trying.
once,
If he's,
No,
I'm just wondering if he's
also-
trying to play a younger Robert Downey Jr.
See, more so because it's an exact recreation of the scene in Iron Man 1. And I think if
Yeah.
it wasn't, like, so what, Chadwick Boseman's playing Star-Lord, right? It's What If Black Panther was Star-Lord,
Yeah.
and that's fine. It could have been someone else even because it's a different part. But when you're recreating that scene from the first Iron Man movie and it doesn't sound like Downey Jr., it's quite jarring.
Yeah.
I
I'm
can't.
just wondering. If,
Maybe
I'm
they were
wondering
just
if
like,
it's an
we don't have, no, I think it's kind of, this is animation. We don't have that kind of budget. We can't afford you, bro.
Everybody's only. I'm just looking at IMDb, and currently they're all just listed as one episode. And yeah, he's not in the credits. It doesn't say who is
Oh.
that. Jeffrey
Yeah.
Wright 10 episodes, Haley Atwell 1 episode, Josh Brolin 1 episode, Dominic Cooper, David Dasmalchian, Michael Douglas, Karen Gillan,
yeah, and it's
Jeff
single
Goldblum's back,
one-off.
Jeff
I think it's a
Goldblum's
single
back, yeah.
one-off episodes. Yeah.
Frank Grillo,
Yeah.
Sean Gunn. There's a Sean Gunn episode.
Nice.
That's the Black
The
Panther
Star-Lord one,
Guardians one.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Korath, Nick Fury, Arnim Zola, Toby Jones, Michael B. Jordan, Neil McDonough, Natalie Portman, Jeremy Renner. Yeah, so he's just not listed here.
Everyone's back except Downey Jr.
Huh.
Yeah.
That is a bit of a unfortunate situation.
Yeah. They do it with the Lego Star Wars stuff. It sounds
It's
just
weird.
so
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's weird.
I can't watch it.
I haven't watched
watch
any
it.
of those. I prefer the Lego games when I think it was Star Wars did it, where the Lego Star Wars games that first came from Traveler's Tales. They just didn't talk. They just mimed everything, and the comedy was
Yeah.
fantastic. There was just like I think it was the Lego Empire Strikes Back or whatever the version was when they did Empire Strikes Back. Vader just shows on Bespin. Vader just shows Luke a Polaroid of him with holding a baby, and it's Luke, and it says "Dad" or something, "World's Best Dad" or something, and it's just like wordless. You know, so
No,
they just
but
they did it that way.
Those jokes feel more thought out.
Yeah.
Right. It feels like they had to think through how to get
Necessity
the
is the
message
mother
across
of invention,
through,
and so you had to
Yeah.
work again. It's the same. Those games had the same problem as George Lucas. Once he had all the money in the world and was given free reign, he gave us Roger Roger and Jar Jar Binks. So
Yeah.
this
Roger, Roger.
sometimes it's good to bang up against the walls sometimes.
Yeah. All right. All episodes of Loki are now streaming on Disney Plus Hotstar, so check them out if you haven't already. And
If
you
we
haven't
missed
already
something,
while
let us
listening
know as
to
well.
This podcast. Yeah, let us know. Actually, let us know if we've forgotten anything, and if we've missed out any, I don't know, key pieces of information in that conversation between Jonathan Majors and the Lokis, or the one who remains in the Lokis. Also,
Give Crocodile
First
Loki his own
Cow.
show.
give Crocodile Loki his own show with Richard E. Grant.
Yeah.
Please make crocodile Loki hats because I want them for my cats.
Yes.
Dude, have you heard of a place called Etsy here? I'm
Oh,
pretty
I
sure.
haven't
Never been
checked.
there.
I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
I haven't checked. I'm going to check now. Yeah, I'm going to stick them on my cats because that's what the world needs.
First Cow is now streaming on Mubi. Don't forget to check it out. And the third and final movie of the Fear Street trilogy, 1666, will be streaming on Netflix. Let us know what you think about all of that stuff. You can reach out on our social media feeds. That's Goggler MY, also podcast at goggler.my. If you want to send us an email, you can also drop us a line on the Goggler hotline, 012-524-5208. This has been an incredibly long episode of the Goggler Podcast.
I found crocheted ones for cats.
I don't want crochet ones. My cats will tear those apart.
Yeah, there are lots of crochet patterns available online as well.
Does anyone have a 3D printer? We can do this.
Oh,
Ooh.
see, Bahir, when I wanted to buy a 3D printer, you were all like, "No, man, you don't need one."
We could
See,
print.
no,
you wish I had one.
We could print
I've
so
changed
many.
my tune.
Yeah, we could print
Yeah, I've
so
changed
many
your tune.
novelty cat hats. We could do. There could be
I've
Gundam,
changed my tune so
Cat
many
Gundam
times.
hats, Loki
Yeah.
hats, Thor hats,
Yeah,
Master Chief Halo
Man.
hats.
we totally need.
We
this-
could
this-
print
this
every
trio
head-
needs yeah.
Every headdress from Horizon Zero Dawn, but for cats.
Ooh.
It's all there.
This trio needs a 3D printer.
Finish the show, Uma. Send us home.
I did.
Okay.
I did like 4 minutes ago.
And thanks for watching. The Loki cat news was important enough; it had to be lead. Then, thanks for watching. Good night. Goodbye. Good
Yes.
day.
Good night, wherever you were watching from.